প্লিজ সবাই এসে বসেন এখানে। এখন আমাদের নেক্সট সেশন আমরা শুরু করব। বাচ্চারা সবাই বসো। আবার প্লিজ সবাই সুন্দর করে বসে যাও। সবাই সামনে আসো, এটা তোমাদের সেশন, বাচ্চাদের সেশন। সো বাচ্চারা সবাই সামনে এসে বসো প্লিজ। এটা তোমাদের জন্য আমরা করছি, সব বাচ্চাদের জন্য। বাচ্চাদের মারাও সবাই বসতে পারেন সামনে সুন্দর করে, যদি আপনাদের কোনো কোশ্চেন থাকে। সাবরিন, তারপরে সবাই এসে বসো প্লিজ, এটা তোমাদের সেশন। বলবো আমি? তুমি নাম ঘোষণা করো না, নাম ঘোষণা করো।
Okay, so we're now going to start our next session. আমাদের হেলথ রিলেটেড সেশনগুলো আমরা অলরেডি শেষ করেছি। এখন আমরা আমাদের ক্যারিয়ার এক্সপোতে চলে যাব। মেইন রিজন ফর ইউ গাইস টু আস্ক কোশ্চেন্স, ডিফারেন্ট ক্যারিয়ার পাথস, তোমাদের যেটাতে ইন্টারেস্ট আছে। এখানে আমরা যে চেষ্টা করেছি যারা এসব ক্যারিয়ার পাথে অলরেডি আছেন তাদেরকে এখানে নিয়ে আসতে, তোমাদের সামনে কথা বলার জন্য। এনি কোশ্চেন্স, এনিথিং ইউ গাইজ আস্ক। সো আমরা দেরি না করে আমরা পরবর্তী সেশনে চলে যাচ্ছি। এখন আসছেন আপনাদের সামনে শাহিনা মান্নান অ্যান্ড নাজিয়া হোসেন।
প্লিজ আপনারা সবাই এসে একটু বসেন, পেছন থেকে সবাই এসে একটু বসেন। আমাদের স্টল সবসময় খোলা থাকবে। এখন আমাদের নেক্সট সেশন শুরু হচ্ছে, আপনারা সবাই এসে একটু প্লিজ বসেন। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Lovely to see you all, especially you kids. Thank you for coming. My name is Shahina Mannan, for those who don't know me. I'm a consultant pharmacist and specialist pharmacist for geriatrics and research. And for those যারা আমাকে চেনেন, আমি কিন্তু গান গাইতে আসি নাই আজকে বা উপস্থাপনা করতে আসি নাই। আপনার থেকে আশ্বস্ত করছি যে আজকে আমি একদম সম্পূর্ণ অন্য টপিক নিয়ে কথা বলবো। I'm gonna talk about the pharmacy profession. Pharmacy is a dynamic, evolving and rewarding profession, starting from helping patients managing their medications to contributing to public health, research, education, leadership, marketing. So it offers wide range of exciting pathways. And Nazia and I, we are trying to give you a glimpse of these exciting opportunities to inspire you to explore where pharmacy profession could take you. So আমি একটা ছোট্ট গল্প দিয়ে আমার ছোট্ট প্রেজেন্টেশনটা শুরু করব। 26 বছর আগে আমি যখন মিডল মোড়ে কাজ করা শুরু করেছিলাম, আমি ক্লিনিক্যাল ফার্মাসিস্ট হিসেবে জয়েন করেছিলাম একদম আমার আর্লি স্টেজে কেরিয়ারের। সো ওয়ান ডে when I was walking down the corridor, the CEO of Middlemore Hospital stopped me and he looked at my ID and said, "Oh, clinical pharmacist, what do you do?" So to be honest, it was like I was very young, not that experienced, and most importantly, clinical pharmacist service were not that established at that time. And আমি তখন তাকে বলেছিলাম, I don't know much, but give me 3 years. I'll do a presentation for the clinical governance group and I'll invite you to that meeting and I'll talk about the role and responsibilities of clinical pharmacists. So আমি নিউজিল্যান্ডে one of the pharmacists যে clinical pharmacy roles and responsibilities establish করেছি, and এটা আমার জন্য ভীষণ, it's very rewarding for me. So when I was preparing the presentation for the Clinical Governance Committee, I conducted a survey, and I wanted to explore the perception of pharmacy among the general population. Just I wanted to know what they think of pharmacy. So আমার study গ্রুপের বয়স ছিল 5 বছর থেকে 80 বছর, 5 years to 80 years. And I'm gonna share some slides, very interesting slides with the idea and drawing of kids, what they think of pharmacy. So let's see. So Matthew, year 2 te porto, he says pharmacists are there to fill out the prescription. Steve is not very sure. He thinks he could be 6 to 8 year old, and he thinks pharmacy is open at 4 o'clock in the morning and closes at 10 and open only for 6 hours, and they make heaps of money. He hasn't forgotten the big till there. And he says, I see pharmacist as a person being a good person who gives me medicine when I'm sick, and I feel better after taking medication. And 5-year-old Alicia thinks pharmacists, they work in the hospital, they talk to the patient, they dispense liters and liters of liquid medication, and they go to conferences. You can see this little girl, she knows more than other kids, because Alicia is my daughter, and I conducted that survey at her school after care. So according to that snapshot, most of the people think pharmacists are there to fill out the prescription. And interestingly, there is not much difference in understanding between the kids and the adult group. So actually, what pharmacists do? So pharmacy is a healthcare profession focused on the safe and effective use of medicine. Pharmacists and medicines experts 4 বছর ওরা মেডিসিন পড়ে, 1 বছর internship করে, and then they become pharmacists, and they work across hospitals, communities, GP clinics, universities, drug companies, and many other healthcare settings. So community pharmacists are the front-line healthcare professionals. They're the first point of contact to support daily health need. আমার চোখে ইনফেকশন হয়েছে, see the pharmacist, what can I use? Antibiotic eye drops, অথবা আমার eczema exacerbated হয়েছে, আমার পায়ে ব্যথা, knee pain, I need some anti-inflammatory. আমরা সবসময় কমিউনিটি ফার্মাসিস্টদের কাছে যাই। এছাড়াও ফার্মাসিস্টরা এখন they can prescribe medications for UTI, for nicotine replacement therapy, oral contraceptives, emergency pills, erectile dysfunction, they're vaccinators, flu vaccine, vitamin B12 injection, and others. So pharmacists, their professionটা এখন খুব evolving. আমার খুব সম্প্রতি আমি একটা কমিউনিটি ফার্মেসি ভিজিট করেছি, যেখানটায় এভরিথিং ইজ রোবোটিক, dispensing is robotic, blister packing is robotic, roll sachets robotic. So community pharmacists, they have strong connection with the patients in the community. So hospital pharmacy, that's my specialty area. I worked in the hospital for 26 years. And we all know the prescribing medication is the most powerful tool and important tool we have to improve our patients' health. We also know medications are the most important healthcare technology in preventing illness, disability, even death. But it can cause serious consequences if not properly used due to adverse drug reactions, adverse drug event. So hospital pharmacists are the integral part of the medical team. They go to the ward round, they go to MDT meetings, they are heavily engaged in discharging patient, and I will just show you. They also, they're involved in developing guidelines, policy, and procedure, And also you can be a specialized pharmacist in different specialty areas, and you can become pharmacist prescriber and consultant pharmacist. So in nutshell, in nutshell, these are the roles and responsibilities of clinical pharmacist in the hospital setting. GP practice pharmacist, this is a very new concept, again, an evolving area. Pharmacists are working inside GP clinics with primary care teams, and they're doing exactly the same thing as hospital pharmacists, but for the patients who are in the community, and they identify the medication-related problems, because medication-related problems are preventable. So their aim is to prevent hospital admission and readmission. They also manage long-term conditions for the patient. They do home visit. They also come up with a pharmaceutical care plan for the patient and also for the GP practitioners. Aged care, pharmacists can work in the residential care facilities, rest home. We all know polypharmacy is a growing problem. It's a significant global problem. And the term polypharmacy is used frequently, but it's not clearly defined in the literature. So use of medication, more than 4, can be considered as polypharmacy, but any medication, even using one medication without any evidence, without any guideline, can be considered as polypharmacy. And if you go to the rest home, and if you look at their medication list, they're the typical example of polypharmacy. And pharmacists can make a huge difference in patients' quality of life by just making a little adjustment or review of medication. Just for your information, risk is 15% with 2 medications, the adverse drug events. Risk increases to 58% with 5 medications, and risk increases to 82% with 7 medications. So it's very important to cut down medications, to cut down inappropriate medication if there is no indication or if it is not supported by the guideline or evidence-based guideline. Pharmacy leadership, I actually have huge experience in that area. So pharmacy leaders, they manage clinical pharmacy team to ensure safe use of medications, and it can be in hospital setting or it can be in primary or community setting. So like hospital pharmacists, I was involved in training interns, students, and also I was lecturing in the University of Pharmacy. So it was part of my hospital job to support future pharmacists. Research. So these are other pathways, non-traditional pathways for pharmacy. And suppose if you choose to work in multinational company, marketing is an exciting area. It is very dynamic, interesting, and glamorous in many ways. But it is very challenging and competitive because you're working at the corporate sector as a corporate, and there are a lot of competitions. If you want to work as medicines regulation and safety pharmacist, you can work for Ministry of Health and come up with guidelines, policy, procedures, safe use of medications, policy, etc. Research and academia. If you want to pursue your career as an academic, you can work in the universities, you can work in college. That's a huge area. Digital health and informatics, electronic discharge summary, electronic prescription, these are all medication management through digital technologies, data analysis, health informatics to improve clinical decision making and patient outcomes, health policy and public health. Pharmacists are heavily involved in developing health policy and improve patients' care at community level through public health services. So why choose pharmacy? It's a trusted healthcare profession, very rewarding. Simple adjustment in the medication regimen can make a huge difference in patients' quality of life. And it is really something you can see in your patients. So I hope you have got enough information about your careers in pharmacy area. And if you have any question, you can ask me. I wanted to show you this certificate. So this is something, consultant pharmacist, it's a new thing in New Zealand. They initiated this thing, I think, 4 years ago. So if you ask me after 26 years of pharmacy service, what I have achieved actually this. It's very rewarding. So if you have any question, you can ask me, or Shenin ar ami ekshonge proshno nite pari. Now I'm handing over to Nazia to talk about pharmacy prescribers' role and other clinical pharmacy practices in the hospital setting. Nazia.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum and good evening to everyone. Amar naam Nazia, but most people amake probably dak nama jane, Shenin. You can call me either or. I probably prefer Shenin if you're Bengali. I respond to that better. I feel like I'm at work when people call me Nazia. My role at the moment, I work as a pharmacist prescriber at Waitemata, basically based on the stroke unit. So, the point of my slides basically was to first of all give you guys an idea into the career pathway and what sort of prereqs you have, and sort of what sort of routes you can take to get into each sector of pharmacy, if you like. So if you wish to be a pharmacist or are planning to be a pharmacist, the first thing you need to do is have an undergraduate degree under your belt, so that's your Bachelor of Pharmacy. If you're going to get into pharmacy, there's no direct entry from 7th form. So you basically go into first year biomed or health science, and that you can do that in University of Auckland or with Otago. Erpor, at the end of that first year, obviously tomar GPA count kore, tomar results count kore. You apply for, Bachelor of Pharmacy. A lot of these people will apply for a multitude of different healthcare sectors. So you'll be working across different people who might be interested in dentistry and optometry and medicine and nursing. So that first year is really a good opportunity to also network with other people who you will probably meet later in your career as a healthcare professional. But first year biomed repore, you put in your application into B-Pharm to be enrolled into B-Pharm. You then get shortlisted. If you get shortlisted as a candidate, you then go ahead and sit your interview board. And I think Akon is structured like mini multiple interviews. You have different stations and you go through each station. You provide your answers. It could be verbal, it could be written. And at the end of it, if you are selected, you will get a nice little email from University of Auckland or Otago saying, hey, you've been selected. Would you like to enter the program? And the remainder of the course then starts at the remaining 3 years. Is based on clinical, theoretical, as well as real-world practice scenarios and activities. So you will be trained on individual disease processes and human body systems and how you would tackle that as a pharmacist in a clinical scenario. You will also have externship programs throughout community, hospital, and pharmaceutical industry settings, as Shaina Auntie mentioned before, so that you can get a taste of each of those sectors and see, which of these would suit you, which you might find most interesting. And these externship programs are obviously graded. You must, pass the minimum requirements from each placement to be able to pass that round. And last but not least, this is something we all as pharmacists are now very used to, OSCEs. So they're clinical examinations, objective structured clinical examinations. Ebong, you sit these at the end of each of your semester. and they could be throughout the course of those 3 years. They could pick any old topic, and they typically tend to be clinical scenarios based on patients, and they tend to be 2 or more disease processes at least. So that's BPharm in a nutshell, 4 years. Once you get your undergraduate BPharm degree, in order to practice as a pharmacist, you then have to go on to your 5th year of training, which is outside of the university. You are under Pharmacy Council and Pharmaceutical Society of New Zealand. They have an internship program which you have to enroll in, and that lasts 1 year. But a minimum of 37 weeks is what they say, but really you're expected to be there for the 12 months. You have to be accepted into a preceptor site, so you apply for jobs essentially to be an intern at different pharmacies, whether that be in hospital or community. And you're attached to a preceptor or a pharmacist who will be your guru, your trainer, your supervisor, and your assessor throughout the year. So you are watched on the job as to your competence and how you conduct and how you judge and make clinical judgments, including your accuracy as well as a pharmacist if you're in a community pharmacy and you're dispensing. So throughout that year, your preceptor will be carrying out appraisals, assessments, and at the end of that year, you have a final appraisal with your preceptor, which should give you either a green tick to go ahead for the assessment centre, which is basically conducted in Wellington and Auckland for all the pharmacists or to-be intern pharmacists, to-be pharmacists. And by the way, throughout the year also, you have to hand in some portfolios and assignments and set a calculations exam, because as it famously holds in the pharmacy world, decimal points can kill. So if you do not get 100% in that calculations exam, you either get to reset it or you fail the year. So once you get through to passing through to assessment centre, again, OSCEs, 10 stations. You pass your OSCEs, you will get an email from the Pharmacy Council saying you can now register and hold an actual annual practicing certificate as a pharmacist and go ahead and practice. So you'll be let out into the wild then to do your own thing. So from there, you can take your career pathway, and as Auntie mentioned, it can be community, it can be hospital, it can be research, it could be pharmaceutical industry, corporate-based jobs, it could be the Ministry of Health. The possibilities are endless, but you need to be able to explore and have an idea of where you want to go. So for me, no-brainer, I loved the clinical side of pharmacy, so I went into clinical pharmacy. Auntie's already, elaborated on the role of a clinical pharmacist, but for me, who are clinical pharmacists, you're the experts in pharmacotherapeutics. What that essentially means is that you are the experts in the use of medicines to treat diseases and disease processes. And you will never get a patient with a single disease process. There'll be a patient with a brain bleed who also needs heart failure treatment, and the kidney's failing at the same time, and the liver's not doing well. And this is where pharmacotherapeutics is complex, interesting, and challenging. So if you are going into this sort of sector, you are expected to then continue on with your postgraduate diploma in clinical pharmacy and advanced clinical pharmacy. So that's a two-year commitment, and that's alongside working. You, as a clinical pharmacist, will be working obviously hands-on with the medical team. So you are attending ward rounds, you are there by the patient's bedside, you are taking consultations with patients, you are speaking to patients' whānau and family, you're providing education, you're giving medication counselling, and you are also training junior doctors, believe it or not. So it is a real teamwork, and it's a multidisciplinary environment. So people like Shine Auntie, laid out those pavements for us, slightly younger ones. I'm not as young as you guys, but to be able to take that for granted. Now, I walk into a ward now, and it's expected that as a clinical pharmacist, you will know this and this and this, and they will sometimes trust you with patients and their treatment and medical decisions and treatment decisions. So you have to be careful as to what you recommend and what you're saying. So yes, and if after all that, that's 5, 6, 7 years of study, you want to go on and have another 8th year of study and you want to be a prescriber, you can go ahead and do that. So I finished my qualification to specialize as a stroke pharmacist prescriber. The deal with this is that you have to have at least 3 years of experience under your belt in your area of specialty as a pharmacist working independently. And you have also, have to have an annual practicing certificate. You have to have your postgraduate diploma and all that completed. And you carry out this further 1 year of prescribing practicum. And it's pretty much all clinical hands-on work. You are supervised by a specialist doctor in that area. So for me, it was a stroke physician who trained me. And I had to carry out, direct observation practice, 150 hours of clinical work, and also set another lot of OSCEs in day 1 of the assessment. And the day 2 of the assessment is basically you facing an interview panel who assess your ability to be able to make clinical judgments, sound clinical judgments for your patients. So what's the difference? Why do I want to be a prescriber as opposed to a clinical pharmacist? Sounds about the same. Not really. As a pharmacist, you do not have the right to prescribe. As a pharmacist prescriber, you do. And when you have that right to prescribe, you are essentially taking accountability for that clinical decision for a treatment for a patient. If things go south, that's an HDC complaint. So that is your responsibility. You are held to high standards, and patients bestow that bit of trust in you as the expert in the team. So, that's basically pharmacist prescribers in a nutshell. But the best part of it is that you get to work alongside doctors who have this amazing wealth of knowledge, and other people who you can beg, steal, and borrow skill sets from, like I did in terms of the clinical settings and diagnostics. So, why do I do this job? I do it because it is challenging. I love navigating clinical scenarios where nobody else has the answer, and you might just, as the medications experts. You walk away from work every day knowing that you have relieved someone's ailment. This person could be someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's father, and no good deed goes unblessed. You might not walk away with a huge pay packet as you would in a corporate sector, but I can tell you I can go to bed every day knowing that I've helped someone else feel a little bit better. So that I take that bit of blessing with me every day home, and I often bore my husband with my various stories who I've met. And you form those human connections in that process because you get to learn from people who are about 50, 60 years older than you, and they will tell you about their life story, which is great, because you also get to listen to their stories and learn from them and reflect upon what you can do differently in your life. So I think it's beyond just the clinical side. It's also about the human connections and the reward of being able to do something for someone who is in pain or in sickness. So great bit of blessing there. That's pretty much all from me, but if you have any questions, drop by and say hi. I'm always around. Yeah, cool.
Any questions now? Oh, Bauwai has a question.
Thank you. Great presentations. I just want to say one thing. There's a recent study from Cleveland Clinic 2 years ago which showed that having pharmacists in the ward round for general physicians improves discharge outcome and long-term mortality. So, very integral part of a medical team, pharmacists are. And you mentioned that you learn from the doctors, but we learn probably a lot more from you guys as well. So thanks to you. I am going to propose at the end of the sessions of all the career pathways, it's going to be pharmacy. They put up a certainly great challenge for all of us. There's going to be entrepreneurship here today. There's going to be lawyers today, and there's going to be what else? Engineering. Now, all these youngsters, be prepared to ask questions. And at the end of the session, we are going to ask random questions to one of you or some of you, which is going to be, you're going to have to answer, why do you want to be a pharmacist? Or why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Or why do you want to be a lawyer? Or why do you want to be an engineer? So just to make sure you've got something out of these sessions. Thank you.
Thank you,
Tomader,
Bauwai.
do you have any question from this side? Any question? Oh, Iqbal bhai.
So this is regarding career suggestion for pharmacists coming from overseas, especially coming from Bangladesh. A lot of pharmacists, they are not registered here. So what could be the easy pathway or what could be the guideline, how to include them in the pharmaceutical profession? Thank you.
Actually, I'm sorry, I don't know the procedure, current procedure, but they should write to the pharmaceutical society and they can actually advise them what to do. Things were different when I came to New Zealand. I had to do exam with Australia, not New Zealand. So it's like I became registered pharmacist in 1997. So everything was so different then. But one thing I can tell that it's very expensive, the exam. I think $10,000 to get registered. And then there are 3 parts. One is clinical, one is maths, calculation, and the third part is clinical questionnaires. There is another one, and then law and regulation. So it's 4. But I'm not too sure, sorry, the current.
Iqbal bhai,
Yeah, ask them to write to pharmaceutical
yeah, Iqbal
society.
bhai, that's
And-
not the, to be honest, that's not the goal
But
of
anyways,
this session.
That's okay.
This is mainly
that's okay.
because
I'm happy to
this-
take any questions. But I think it would be good to write to the pharmaceutical society because I don't know if our degree is recognized or not. I mean, I can't make any comment on that. আচ্ছা আমাদের সুযোগ দেওয়ার জন্য অনেক ধন্যবাদ যেতে যেতে আমি শুধু একটা ঘোষণা দিয়ে যাব একটা কমিউনিটি ওয়ার্ক আসছে 14th ফেব্রুয়ারি ভ্যালেন্টাইন্স ডে উপলক্ষে একটা কনসার্ট হচ্ছে দীপু গাইবে আরিয়া গাইবে আমাদের কমিউনিটির তুহিন ভাই গাইবে অনেকেই গাইবে তো তোমাদের সময় থাকলে তোমরা আসবে আপনারা সবাই আসবেন
Thank you, Shainapa. Thank you, Nazia. Moving along, so the next presenters are Nauma Islam and Tanzam Hussain for law. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So I'll just.
It's just me in the room.
That's fine. I'll just put it up there.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. Clap, clap. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Noma. I don't have a slideshow, so it's just going to be me in the room. But I am a brand new lawyer. I got admitted to the bar in September of last year. So I think I'll start off by saying why I wanted to do law and then maybe the process of it so you guys have an idea. The whole reason I wanted to do law was because my parents are doctors and I wanted to be really different. That's kind of it around that. In relation to how the process works for law school, you can go to the University of Auckland or Waikato or the University of Otago. Do you have a question, Sabri? No? And you, at UOA, because that's where I went, you have to enroll yourself into 2 degrees. And that is so you can get picked to continue law school in your 2nd year. So I chose law and arts. I've heard a lot of people do law and health science, which is insane. Don't do that. And the whole reason for that is that if you do not get into law school on your first round, you can continue your 2nd degree and try again. And I think you can try again 3 times and then try something else. Law school is about 3 to 4 years. You can do it full time. There's a lot of full year papers. If I was to give you guys any tips, it would be do every single one of your readings and learn how your lecturer thinks. That's the best way to get the best grades. And if you get good grades, you will get yourself an internship. And if you get an internship, you get a fast track to a job, which is what we all want. The pros about law is that it's a really diverse degree. Afterwards, you don't have to become a lawyer. I know a lot of people who have gone into politics or legal research. I became a lawyer because I really like it. And there's a range of things you could do. So if you do like things like medicine, you can become a healthcare lawyer, you can become a commercial lawyer. I am a family lawyer, and I also like politics. So right now I'm working within the Waitangi Tribunal, which is really interesting and engaging work. Once you finish law school, you'll have to go into profs, also known as the bar. You can do that full-time or part-time. I would do it part-time so that you can have time to breathe and really do it properly, because that is where you specialize, and that is, do you get the picture? And, oh, okay. And that is where you learn, and that's where you actually find out what you guys are interested in, and it's really important to go into a field that you're passionate about, but also don't take it too seriously. You can change your path whenever. What other things would I have to say? If you need to know how influential I am, I influenced Savareen to do the exact same degree as me. She's doing law and sociology. I think that is it from me. Look, I'm very new in the legal industry. I don't have that much experience, but what I do know is that you will be worked really hard, but you will love every second of it. It's really fun, I promise. Like, trust. I think that is it from me, if anyone has any questions. Thanks, guys. Someone ask a question, any question.
I have a question. Could I ask first, and then I'll hand over the mic to whoever. I've got a question.
Yeah.
You showed the pathway of how to become a lawyer.
Yes.
Now, I know a person who finished his career in some other areas at 65, spent 5 years in retirement, and then went on to study law at 70 years age, and eventually became an immigration lawyer in the United States. He was very successful.
Wow.
Could you tell me how I could be a lawyer when I retire?
Wow. What you do is you enroll into the University of Auckland and you do the path I just explained.
Would I get any credit for my studies so far?
No. So in order to become a lawyer, to enroll in profs, you have to do a legal ethics course. You have an extreme duty to the court and to your clients, so you have to do an entire course based on that. So you will have to go through law, and then you'll have to go through profs, and then you can become a lawyer.
Any other questions? Anyone?
Hi.
Hi.
Seeing as you're a family lawyer, do you like come across crazy drama and like cases and stories?
Yeah, but I'm not allowed to
Yeah,
discuss that.
confidentially, but it's okay. That's cool. That's cool.
There's a lot of drama. So if you guys do like drama, go into family. And if you like even more drama, go into crim. It's just a bit upsetting. I think that's it from me.
All
Clap
right.
again.
Now I would like to invite Tanzam Hussain.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. My name is Tanzam, or my dak nam is Roop, which is what a lot of you know me by. So I am a commercial litigator. I've been practicing for 8 years now. Before I tell you what it's like to be a lawyer and the pros and cons of it, I'd just like to get one gripe off my chest about the Bengali community, which is they love doctors, can't get enough of them. We've got heaps of engineers, and I don't think we've got nearly enough lawyers. And I'd like to see a lot more lawyers coming through the pipeline. I know that there's a few people already in law school or considering it, which makes me super happy. But today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my job, which is a pretty niche sort of area of the law. And Noma obviously told you about family law, another area of the law. Basically, if a sort of concept exists that requires the law, there is a lawyer for it. And the one thing to know about the law is it impacts each and every one of us. Each and every profession is impacted by the law, and everyone's lives are impacted by the law, which is why I think it's super important and super interesting as well, because you can find an area of the law that impacts you or is special to you, and you can practice in that area and find quite a bit of relatability. So for me, I've been practicing for 8 years. I work at Chapman Tripp, which is one of the largest law firms in the country. I practice in 3 areas. My first area is employment law, which, similar to family law, is very, very juicy because the things that people do at work that they shouldn't do at work, ask me afterwards. I can't say up here, but it's essentially I work in litigation law. So that's when people get fired and sue their employers. I tend to act for the employers, sometimes the employees. They could be fired for a number of reasons: discrimination, performance issues, disciplinary issues, a whole lot of stuff, redundancies. So we work with that. We work with workplace investigations into harassment, bullying, all of that. If we don't manage to settle or resolve a case, we then have to go to court with it. So that's the next step. So that's generally sort of what I work with in employment. Second bucket is workplace health and safety. So that's ensuring that everyone in the workplace is safe and healthy. So under the Health and Safety at Work Act in New Zealand, employers have an obligation to make sure that when you go to work, you return home safe. A lot of the time, that doesn't happen. If you're in an office job, less likely to happen. You'll probably just come home with a paper cut. But if you're working on a construction site, if you're working in our forests, if you're working on our roads, you are far more likely to be harmed at work. So a large part of my role involves criminal prosecutions in relation to workplace health and safety. So that's when someone's injured or dies as a result of a essentially occurrence of negligence on the part of the employer. So I tend to act for defendants in those cases, with the government acting for the deceased or the injured person. The final area that I practice in, and this is probably my favorite area, favorite because it's incredibly fascinating, but also incredibly dark, is coronial inquests. So whenever there is a death of a certain magnitude, of a certain importance in New Zealand, there is a coronial inquest into those deaths. So most notably, I would say, is probably the Christchurch mosque attacks. There was a coronial inquest still going on into what went wrong, why did this happen, what can we as a community do, as a community in New Zealand do, to prevent this from happening ever again. That involves essentially multiple parties coming together, both government and private. So for example, for Christchurch, it would be the people that manufactured the doors that did not work. It would be police, it would be ambulance, it would be fire. Lots of different parties. I think Facebook is also involved as a party. So everyone that had any kind of influence on this death that resulted in, in the chain of causation occurring would be involved in the process. Most recently, I acted for the Hawke's Bay Regional Council in the Cyclone Gabriel weather events where 19 people passed away. I've got an upcoming trial looking into concussions in rugby players in New Zealand, which is going to be very, very interesting and impactful because obviously rugby is the biggest sport in New Zealand. So the way that it is played will hopefully going forward be changed as a result of this trial. I also do a lot of work with St. John's, the ambulance provider, which creates quite a few sort of interesting cases in specific deaths that possibly shouldn't have occurred and what could be done differently. So those are sort of the general areas in which I practice. As Noma covered before, there are obviously lots of different areas. I think what I particularly love about the ones that I do is they're very human focused, they're very people focused. So you can be a tax lawyer and you will not really deal with human beings ever. You can be a property lawyer, you can be a criminal lawyer. I like that employment law, workplace health and safety and coronial inquests puts people at the center of it, and a lot of it is about changing things in the future so that bad things don't happen again. But I also do enjoy the fact that I get to work in sort of more of a corporate and commercial setting as well, because I get that sort of exposure and it's a more comfortable job because of that. My advice to anyone considering doing law or who is sort of preparing to become a lawyer, if you're in your final stages, would be it's a tough road, but it is so incredibly rewarding. Keep going, and I think that's the most important thing, is that I think law comes across as quite scary, especially at least when I was in law school. The first year intake was 1,500 people, and then you got chopped down to 300 people being admitted. That in itself is scary. Then you go through law school, very, very tough. You get out the other side, and there's about 20 jobs at a firm that gets 400 applicants, right? All of that seems really scary, except for the fact that the one thing I've realized is that law will reward you for keeping going. So I didn't start off at a big fancy firm. I started off as an employment lawyer at a really small firm. I moved my way up to a mid-tier, and now I'm at a big firm. And so if you just sort of keep going with the path, it does sort of tend to work out in that way, because New Zealand is actually quite desperate for skilled lawyers. It's tough at the start, but towards, about 3 years in, the numbers kind of drop off because people go to London or Australia or wherever. So there is a real need for lawyers, and it's a very worthwhile profession because of that. It's incredibly rewarding. At least I find my work incredibly rewarding. I definitely recommend it for someone who enjoys strategy, problem solving, arguing, because it's just so interesting when you're trying to crack a case, when you're trying to figure out, how am I going to argue this? Because it's basically like a challenge. Someone gives you a set of facts. You can't pick your facts. It's like in a game when you get dealt a hand, right? And you have to make your hand work. That's exactly what law is like. So you get given some bad facts and some good facts, and you have to figure out how to make them work. And the day or the hour or the time when you go, aha, this is going to be my case, is amazing. And I find it so satisfying, especially when you're standing up in front of a court, in front of a judge, in front of a full media gallery, and you are, especially when you're working on things like Cyclone Gabriel, when you're working on the biggest coronial inquests in the country, and it's impacting so many lives and will impact so many lives going forwards into the future, because as soon as the law changes, so many people's lives are impacted. I think that's what's really, really important. Reasons you wouldn't do law, and things to rather consider and keep in mind when you are doing law. It is incredibly tough. The hours tend to be longish, not as long as some doctors I know, but longish. And it can feel quite tough at times, but it's just about keeping going and knowing why you're doing it. So if you are motivated enough to go, yes, this is the career that I want to do, and I'm really interested in this, if you keep pushing, I think it's incredibly rewarding as well. That's all that I had to say. If there's any questions, let me know. If you want to hear my law stories, let me know later.
Questions?
Yes.
One. Fantastic presentation, Ruth. Really learned a lot, and some of us are getting motivated to do law after we finish our career. Quick question. Any particular personality trait you think would be vulnerable to do law? Like, obviously a lot of mental stress is there. That's one question I have. And the second one is, you have mentioned about various fractions, like different compartments of the law program, like environmental law, commercial law, family law, social jurisdiction. What is a happy lawyer and what is a stressful lawyer? Thanks.
Oh, is there such a thing? Okay, so answer to the first question, what is probably a vulnerability or a trait you wouldn't want to have in law? I say this realizing that most of us have some element of this, otherwise we wouldn't be human beings, but getting too sensitive about what people say to you, right? Because if you are acting against opposing counsel, they're going to try and have a go at you. They're going to try really hard to make you feel bad. And when I was a really junior lawyer, I would go, that's so hurtful. Why would they say that to me? And you take it really personally when they attack your arguments, your client, your case. No, you don't know what you're talking about. But they're doing it because they want their client to win, right? And so you have to get into the habit of going, this is strictly professional, this is strictly business, and they're going to say whatever they want, but I know what I know, and I'm going to argue the best I can. And that sometimes comes across not just with opposing counsel, that comes across with your own colleagues, that comes across with the profession. And I don't know whether that's specific to law or all professions. You kind of have to have thick skin and you have to go, okay, they're saying that, but I believe what I believe and I'm going to keep going with this. I think that's the most important thing that you can do as a lawyer is just keep going in the face of adversity, because the entire point of at least litigation and other types of law is literal adversity that you are getting. So that's the first one. Happy lawyer. Well, I think I'm a happy lawyer, but I would say if you want less stress, go for types of law that are less confrontational. So a property lawyer that is sort of just working more office-based, corporate or commercial lawyer that's more office-based, that is a happy lawyer. If you are coming up against opposing counsel, so let's say you are a litigator, let's say you're working in family criminal employment, that is more stressful just because of the nature of the role, but I find it more exciting. So it's a bit of a balance. If it's more exciting, it tends to be more stressful, but you sort of just have to choose where your happy medium is in that sort of continuum. Yeah.
থ্যাংক ইউ রূপ আমরা এখানে কোশ্চেন শেষ করছি কারণ আমাদের আসলে একটু সময়ের স্বল্পতা আছে আমাদের 10টার মধ্যে হল ছেড়ে দিতে হবে তো সেজন্য এখন আমি বলবো ফারিয়া আর লগ্নকে আসতে আমাদের এটাকে আমরা কি বলবো স্মল বিজনেস উদ্যোক্তা বা এন্টারপ্রেনার আসো প্লিজ দুজনই আসো একজন একজন করে বলো আর আরেকটা জিনিস হচ্ছে আমাদের ফেসবুক পেজটা প্লিজ আপনারা সবাই একটু লাইক সাবস্ক্রাইব করবেন হ্যাঁ আর আমাদের 20 তারিখে যে প্রোগ্রামটা আছে আমরা পরে আরও ডিটেলস জানিয়ে দেব ওইটা একটু মাথায় রাখবেন থ্যাংক ইউ
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hi, my name is Fari and I own a jewellery business called Liquid the Label. So tonight I'm here to talk about entrepreneurship, why I love it and what it genuinely entails. So start a bit about my background. I'll keep it short. So I was raised by all doctors who are really incredible by the way. So I was raised in a really academic background. So I went to Auckland Uni and graduated in health science. And straight after, I worked at a medical centre as a practice manager. A few years in, I decided I craved more independence, so I then went into real estate. Real estate was a really cool experience, but my wonderful husband and I, we went to the States, and during that time, I had a lot of time to reflect, and I realised I wanted to go down a more creative path, because I felt like the current path I was on, it just didn't align with who I was, and that's when the idea of starting a jewellery business sparked. So I realised there was a massive gap in the New Zealand jewellery market when it comes to fashion-forward, street-style jewellery. So I decided to post a photo of earrings on my Instagram story, and I asked all my followers, would you buy these? 9 people said yes, and to me that was enough. So that's where Liquid the Label was born. Now, one of the things that I love about running my own business is freedom. So I have freedom in time, freedom in creativity, freedom in direction. So I choose what I build on my full terms. I also love how effort and reward, are directly related. So when you put in hard work for your own self, you actually get to feel the results of it directly. And this is honestly just so rewarding. And the best part about running my business is I get to use my platform to inspire others, encourage others to actually express themselves and feel confident, and this is honestly so fulfilling. So when it comes to starting a business, I do want to be honest, it's not easy. There's going to be a lot of long hours, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, there's also a lot of questions and a lot of learning. But trust me, this is where mindset comes in, because patience and perseverance will get you through anything. Now, if in saying that, education still matters, because university teaches you guys accountability, it teaches you structure, it teaches you discipline, which are all essential in running a business. So if you're sitting here and you don't know what you want to do with your life, don't worry, because you've got time. You don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to have it figured out. You can try new things, learn from them, and observe what makes you feel happy and what actually energizes you. Because when you love what you do and your work aligns with you, motivation comes naturally. Thank you guys so much. Does anyone have any questions? Someone has to ask me a question.
I have a question. You mentioned creativity, perseverance, resilience, a bit of background education, and research,
Patience.
patience. Now, of all the attributes that you mentioned, which one stands tall?
Perseverance.
Perseverance.
So you just don't give up. You keep trying no matter what.
Right. So it started off with a small step of 9 rings. And
Yes.
where is it at the moment?
So products, so now we have over 90 items on the website, which is really cool, and we have a full global customer base. We actually get orders from Dubai, we got some from Jordan, we got some from Italy, Netherlands, so it's been really cool seeing it like go around the world.
Fantastic. So the question, youngsters, don't forget, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? I'm going to ask that. Thank you, Faria.
Thank you.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম সবাইকে ফার্স্ট অফ অল আমি আরোহাকে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি এই প্ল্যাটফর্মে ডাকার জন্য যারা আমার নাম জানেন না লগ্ন আমি ওই পুরো স্টোরিটা শর্টে বোঝানোর চেষ্টা করব আমার স্টোরিটা বাট কতটুকু পৌঁছাতে পারবো জানি না আমি প্রথমে আমি ছোট করে আমার ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডটা বলি আমি বাংলাদেশ থেকে মার্কেটিংয়ে অনার্স মাস্টার্স করি দেন 2012-এ এখানে পোস্ট গ্র্যাড করতে আসি বিজনেসে তখন থেকেই আমার জব করি মার্চেন্ডাইজিংয়ে জব করি কল সেন্টারে জব করি 2020-তে কোভিডের সময় আমি ফার্স্ট একদম ঘরোয়াভাবে ঘরের ইকুইপমেন্ট দিয়ে কিচেন থেকে প্রথম অনলাইন স্টার্ট করলাম যার নাম হচ্ছে স্ন্যাক বাইট আস্তে আস্তে যখন আমি ফার্স্ট অনলাইন মার্কেটিং ফার্স্ট অনলাইন খুললাম পেজ খুললাম স্টার্ট করলাম মানুষের ডিমান্ড অনেক বাড়তে থাকলো চাহিদাও বাড়তে থাকলো তো এর পাশাপাশি কিচেনটাতে আমার হলো না আমি আমার হাজব্যান্ড আমাকে ডেকে একটা বড় কিচেন করে দিল ওই তখন থেকে যে আমার যাত্রা শুরু হয়েছে এখনও চলছে তো এর মধ্যে যেটা হয়েছে 2023-র দিকে আমি একটা শর্ট কোর্স করি তখন কোর্সটা হচ্ছে মেন্টাল হেলথ কোর্স তখন থেকে আমি অ্যাজ এ সাপোর্ট ওয়ার্কার মেন্টাল হেলথ সাপোর্ট ওয়ার্কার কাজ করছি 2025-এ শেষের দিকে একটা কার্টের অপরচুনিটি আসলো স্যান্ডরিংহামে সেটা গ্র্যাব করলাম তো আস্তে আস্তে মানুষের ভালোবাসা বাড়তে থাকলো সবার চাহিদা বাড়তে থাকলো যে কোথায় দেশি খাবারটা পাবো বা কত কনভিনিয়েন্টভাবে দেশি ট্রেডিশনাল খাবারগুলো পাওয়া যাবে তো যখন ফার্স্ট এখানে আসি 2012-এ কিছু জিনিস অনেক মিস করি সেটা হচ্ছে আমাদের কালচার আমাদের হেরিটেজ তো আমার কাছে যেটা মনে হয় যে কোনো দেশের ফুড বা খাবার একটা কালচারকে অনেকখানি ইনভলভ এবং অনেকখানি জিনিসটাকে ফুটিয়ে তুলতে পারে তো তখন আমি এখন যারা নতুন আসে তারা আমি মনে করি অনেক লাকি আমরা যখন এসেছি তখন মানে আমরা ইচ্ছা করলে কোথাও খেতে যেতে পারতাম না যে কোথায় পাবো ভাত ভর্তা বা কোথায় পাবো সেই ফুচকা তো তখন মজার কথা যেটা ছিল তখন মনে হতো যে কখন আমার ফ্রেন্ড আমাকে দাওয়াত করবে সে ভাত ভর্তার জন্য ইনভাইট করবে বা ফুচকার জন্য ইনভাইট করবে তো আমরা বসে থাকতাম তো ওই সুযোগটা বা অপরচুনিটি ছিল না যে মন চাইতেও চলে যেতাম তো যখন আমি ফুড কার্ট দিলাম তখন অনেকে আমাদের মানে সেই চাহিদাটা মানে বললো যে মানে আমরা কি একটু আর আমি যখন স্টার্ট করলাম তখন অনেক রেইনি সিজন ছিল কেউ বসার জায়গা পেত না তো সবার কথা হলো যে আমি কি ওই জিনিসটা পেতে পারি ওই দেশি ওই খাবারটা বা দেশি ওই স্বাদটা তো মিনওয়াইল আমরাও আসলে কার্টে আমার জন্য অনেক কষ্ট হচ্ছিল কাজ করা যেহেতু কার্টটা ছোট আর আমার খাবারের ইগুলা আইটেম বড় ছিল মিনওয়াইল পাশে রেস্টুরেন্টের অপরচুনিটি আসলো উইদিন 1 মান্থ তো এরপরে যেটা হয় উইদাউট হ্যান্ড অন এক্সপিরিয়েন্স কোনো শেফ ছাড়া শুধু ফ্যামিলি সাপোর্ট নিয়ে আমরা সাহস করে রেস্টুরেন্টে নিয়ে নিলাম সেই যে নিলাম সেখান থেকে এখনও যাত্রা চলছে। তো আমি এটাই বলবো যে এই টোটাল এক্সপিরিয়েন্সে যতটুক মানে জব তো অবশ্যই ভালো, জব তো ভালো, বাট বিজনেসের ব্যাপারটা থেকে যদি আমি মানে অ্যাজ এ বিজনেস যখন থেকে আমি স্টার্ট করছি 2020 থেকে এই পর্যন্ত, একটা জিনিস বলবো যে এখানে হয়তো বা অনেক স্ট্রেস আছে, অনেক ফ্রাস্ট্রেশন আছে, অনেক এংজাইটি আছে। ওই জিনিসগুলোকে অ্যাকনলেজ করতে হবে, এবং ও যেটা বললো আমি কখনো গিভ আপ করতে পারবো না, আমার চলে যেতে হবে, অনেক অবস্টেকেল আসবে, কিন্তু ওই জিনিসগুলোকে অ্যাকনলেজ করা হচ্ছে আমার ফার্স্ট স্টেপ। যে আমার এংজাইটি হবে, আমার এই যাত্রাতে লাস্ট 3 মান্থস স্পেশালি আমি অনেকবার মেন্টাল ব্রেকডাউন করছি, আমার অনেক ফ্রাস্ট্রেশন ছিল। আমার লাস্ট যখন 13-এ আমরা সফট লঞ্চ করি, এরপর 16-এ অফিসিয়াল লঞ্চ করি, তো 13-এর পর থেকে আমার এমনও দিন গেছে এভরি অল্টারনেটিভ ডেতে আমার মনে হয়েছে যে আমি কালকে হয়তো বা কাজে যেতে পারবো না, মানে আমি মেন্টালি ব্রেকডাউন করতাম। তো পরের দিন হয়তো বা আমি এত বড় কিচেন সামলাতে পারবো না, কাস্টমারদের করতে পারবো না। এই জিনিসগুলোকে ওভারকাম করা, স্ট্রেসগুলোকে হ্যান্ডেল করা, এটাকে আমি অ্যাকনলেজ করি যে এগুলো ওভারকাম করে কন্টিনিউশন করাটা, এটাই হচ্ছে সবথেকে চ্যালেঞ্জিং জিনিস ছিল আমার এক্সপিরিয়েন্স থেকে। হ্যাঁ, এটার রিওয়ার্ড পার্ট কী ছিল, মানে এত কষ্টের পরেও কেন আমি এটা করতেছি, সো এইটার পিছনে একটাই কারণ। আর এটা টানলে আমি আরেকটা কথা বলতে চাই যে খাবার রান্না বা কুক করা যে আমার প্যাশন, এটা আমি আগে বুঝিনি যতক্ষণ পর্যন্ত না আমি এইটার পাশাপাশি আমি জব করি, এখন লিভে আছি। তো জবের পাশাপাশি যখন আমি এটা প্যাশন হিসেবে নেই 2020 থেকে, আমি জব করিও পাশাপাশি এটা কন্টিনিউ করি। তো যত কষ্টই হোক এটা আমাকে এনজয়মেন্ট দিত, আমাকে মোটিভেট করতো, আমাকে মানে এগিয়ে যাওয়ার জন্য আমাকে পুশ করতো। তখনই বুঝলাম যে না, এটা আমার জন্য একটা প্যাশনের জায়গা, এবং এই প্যাশনের জায়গা থেকেই এখন পর্যন্ত জবের পাশাপাশি আমি এটাকে ধরে রাখতে পারছি। তো আমি এটা বলতে চাই যে বিজনেসটা একটা ছোট্ট দুনিয়া, যেটা নিজের দুনিয়া, যেখানে স্ট্রেস আছে, কষ্ট আছে, ফ্রাস্ট্রেশন আছে, বাট তা অ্যাট দ্য সেম টাইম রিওয়ার্ডিং আমার জন্য ছিল যেটা, বা এখন আছে যে আমার এটার আরেকটা মেইন ছিল যে মানুষের কাছে, যেমন আমরা এখানে অনেক ইন্ডিয়ান খাবার পাই বা অন্য দেশে অনেক খাবার পাই, কিন্তু বাঙালি যেটা কালচারাল ফুড, এটা কিন্তু আমরা পাই না। তো ওই খাবারটা মানুষের কাছে পৌঁছানো, যে আমাদের ইথনিক খাবারটা, এটা আমার ওয়ান অফ দ্য গোল ছিল। তো আমি ওই যে স্যাটিসফ্যাকশনটা কোথায়, স্যাটিসফ্যাকশনটা ওখানেই যে নট অনলি বাংলাদেশেরও তো অবশ্যই সাপোর্ট ছিল, বাট যখন একটা পাকিহা বা পাকিস্তানি বা ইন্ডিয়ানরা এসে বললো যে তোমার খাবারটা নিয়ে যাই, যখন আমরা টেকঅ্যাওয়ে নিয়ে যাই বা বসে খাই, যখন খাবারটা খেলে মনে হয় যে যে খাবারটা রান্না করেছে সে খুব ভালোবাসা দিয়ে ভিতর থেকে রান্না করেছে। ওই যে কথাটা বা ওই যে রিটার্ন কাস্টমার, আমার এমনও হয়েছে যারা বিদেশি কাস্টমার সেই ভর্তা মাছের জন্য তারা রেগুলার, বা হালিমের জন্য তারা রেগুলার ফেরত আসে, বাংলাদেশিরা না, বাংলাদেশে তো আসে। ওই যে জিনিসগুলা, সেগুলাই হচ্ছে আমাকে মানে স্যাটিসফাই করে, বা মানে আমি ওই কষ্টটা করে নেয়। তো আমি টোটাল এটা থেকেই বলবো যে আবারও এটাই বলবো যে বিজনেসটা নিজের দুনিয়া, নিজের মতো করে গুছানো, নিজের কষ্ট, নিজের ফ্রাস্ট্রেশন, বাট অ্যাট দ্য সেম টাইম ওখানে আনন্দও আছে। টোটাল আমার এতদিনের এক্সপিরিয়েন্স থেকে আমি যদি নাটশেলে বলতে চাই, আমি যেটা করেছি পার্সোনালি, যখন আমি ফার্স্ট কার্টে যখন ডিমান্ড বাড়তে থাকলো, আমি অ্যাট দ্য পয়েন্টে জব ছাড়িনি, বাট আমি লিভে গেছি। তো আমার সাজেশন হবে কেউ যদি জবের থেকে বিজনেস স্টার্ট করে, সে মানে যদি সুবিধা থাকে জব না ছাড়ার জন্য। সো আমি যেটা করেছি আনপেড লিভে গিয়েছি 3 মাস, এটা একটা। সেকেন্ড হচ্ছে এটাতে অবশ্যই মেন্টাল স্ট্রেস থাকবে, ফিজিক্যাল স্ট্রেস হবে, নন আওয়ার ওয়ার্ক, এবং ফিনান্সিয়াল স্ট্রেস থাকবে। এই 3টা জায়গায় স্ট্রং থাকতে হবে। এবং যদি ফ্যামিলি থাকে, স্পেশালি আমার হচ্ছে ছোট 8 বছরের মেয়ে আর 17 বছরের ছেলে, ওই জায়গাটা হচ্ছে আমার জন্য খুবই চ্যালেঞ্জিং, স্টিল নাও চ্যালেঞ্জিং। আমার মেয়েকে আমি সময় দিতে পারি না, যেটার জন্য আমি রোজ মেন্টালি ব্রেকডাউন করি, আবার উঠি। তো এই জিনিসগুলা অবশ্যই থাকবে। নতুন বিজনেস যখন একটা উঠবে, আমার এই জিনিসটা মাথায় রাখতে হবে যে আমি ঠিক আছে আমার জবটা আছে, আমি জবটা থেকে ছুটি নিলাম, তাহলে ব্যাক অফ দ্য মাইন্ড এটা আমার সিকিউরিটি থাকলো, ওয়েদার ইট ইজ পেইড আর আনপেইড, যে না আমি ফেরত যেতে হলেও বিজনেসটা যদি আমি ফল ডাউনও করে আমার জবটা আছে। এইটা আর ওই তিনটা জিনিস, ফ্রাস্ট্রেশন বা এংজাইটি, এগুলো তো অ্যাকনলেজ করতে হবে, অ্যাট দ্য সেম টাইম উঠে দাঁড়াতে হবে। এইটাই। আর আর এটাই বলবো যে আমার এই পর্যন্ত উঠে আসার জন্য, মানে এই পর্যন্ত আসার জন্য ফ্যামিলি সাপোর্ট অনেক দরকার হয়, যেটা আমি আমার ফ্যামিলি থেকে, মানে আমার এই পর্যন্ত আসার জন্য আমার ফ্যামিলি, আমার হাজব্যান্ড সাপোর্ট ছিল বলেই আমি এই পর্যন্ত আসি। ফ্যামিলি সাপোর্টও একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট জিনিস। তো এখানে আমি শেষ করতেছি। যদি কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকে অ্যাবাউট ফুড বিজনেস বা কি, যতটুকু আমার এক্সপিরিয়েন্স আমি বলতে পারবো।
I don't have a question, but I have a comment to make. Fantastic presentations, both of you. One common thread: passion for jewelry, passion for cooking, leading to creativity, innovation, and successful businesses. I think we can conclude that way. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
So follow your heart, young ones.
We are almost at the end of the program. Now, the most popular guy talking about engineering.
Thank you, thank you. I got bored and closed my notes app. Give me a sec. So first thing I'm gonna ask is some crowd participation. Put your hand up if you know 2 or more engineers. Put your hand up, come on. Aunties as well, come on, I know you know engineers. Yeah, okay. Now, keep your hand up if you know what an engineer does. Nihal, take a guess. What does an engineer do? What do I do? 8 hours, 5 days a week, what do I do? That mic isn't on.
Can you hear me?
I just talk loud. Yeah. Yeah. All right, just keep it to a sentence. So what Nihal said was implementing new projects. That's somewhat right. And anyone else have a guess? Oh, wait, sorry, one. Sorry?
You make
Building, finding angles. Okay, that's part of the job. Ikram uncle. Design. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, you make coronary stents.
Sorry?
You design coronary stents. You know, the rings that goes in the arteries of the heart.
Ah, yes.
Biomedical engineering.
Design, yeah. That thing. Coronary stents. That's what he said. Yeah. Solving problems. That's a good one. Anyone else? Solving engineering problems.
Building bridges.
Make the people's life enjoyable, okay? Because our world was not readily suitable for suitable to use comfortably. So an engineer's duty is to make it comfortable for everyone.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
the area of structural, in the area of infrastructural, electricity, okay, appliances, so many things, okay? What is not? Everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So lots of opinions. I think all of them are correct. But if you were to ask me what an engineer does day to day, 8 hours a day, what do I do? Is I apply science and maths to solve problems. So that's what an engineer does, right? So as a structural engineer, I use physics and material strengths and material science to design concrete that would build this building here. You see those big white things, those were all sized and designed by an engineer, this floor. so it doesn't shake too much. That stage, that maximum 50 people, someone had to come up with that number. That's not just a random number, that's an engineer's number. But mechanical engineers, I mean, how do you get air conditioning? Like, really think about it. How does cold air exist and come out of somewhere? They use thermodynamics, which is just a bunch of numbers on a page, and they turn it into air conditioning. How does a car go forward? Actually, that's using ideal gas law to make wheel spin in an engine, which doesn't make sense, but it happens, okay? So now that we all know what an engineer does, somewhat, to be honest, you never really figure it out. I guess the next thing is, so this presentation is mostly aimed at the high schoolers, right? So I guess, yeah, well, my advice would be is that if you have an interest in science, if you have an interest in maths, physics, if you like knowing how things work, trying to understand that, and you like making things work, if you like creating things, seeing things come to life, then I think engineering is a very good place to be, because that's what you do for pretty much your entire life. Yeah, let's see. Yep. Okay, cool. So, you get through high school, and then, you know, if you've decided, okay, cool, I actually like this math thing. Okay, I actually like physics. It makes sense to my brain. You know, when you drop things, they fall down. Okay, cool, I want to go into engineering. What do? You go to university, right? So I went to the University of Auckland. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's a 4-year course. The first year, as with any engineering degree, is a general course just to show you what engineering's like. And then there's a whole bunch of disciplines, right? So there's mechanical engineers, which everyone knows because of cars. There's civil engineers, which you know from roads and buildings. There's chemical engineers from milk. I mean, there's a lot. There's engineering science, biomedical, you know, anything that goes into your body. And yeah, again, all of those courses is just going to teach you how to use maths, how to use science, how to solve problems. And in all honesty, it's not an easy degree. You will see equations with no numbers in them. You'll do entire courses with just letters. You will write papers on concepts that make no sense. Imaginary numbers gets way worse. I'm just telling you that now. You will also have to do group projects. Just the worst thing in history. But at the end of it, you'll be left with an engineering degree. And what that degree means, it doesn't mean you're smart. It doesn't mean that you know a lot of things. Trust me. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that you know how to find solutions. You're a person that if someone has a problem, you don't know the solution, but you know how to find the solution. When somebody needs a bridge built over a river that's been going for 100 years, no one's ever solved that exact problem, but you know where to look, you know what models to use to solve that problem. Yeah, so that's what the engineering degree means. That's why you'll see a lot of people in a lot of different industries are engineers. Like a lot of people in banking, they like engineering degrees because it means you can think, you have logic, you know how to solve problems, you have resilience. Yeah, so I could talk more about the other disciplines, but I would just say bad things about them because I'm a structural engineer. So I will focus the rest of this talk on structural engineering, which is my discipline. So I currently work as a consultant engineer. So what that means is that I design buildings, which is actually like a lot cooler than it sounds. But I get to work on like hospitals, train stations, with the national government prisons, but you know, schools, which are just smaller prisons. But and so yes, sorry, I'm making myself laugh. But as a consulting engineer, my job is to make sure that every building that I design is designed to the building code, that it can be built in a health and safe way, that it's fit for purpose. And then what I would do is that I would then give it to a contracting engineer. So there's two main types of engineer. There's consulting and contracting. And contracting, that's the really angry guy on the construction site who's yelling at everyone. So his job, that guy also has an engineering degree, but his job is to make sure that, to interpret what I've designed, to get it built, to make sure that it stays on program, on budget. I'm sure in the news, all you hear is how all the public projects are out of budget, out of time. That's because you never hear about the projects that go well. I think that's the curse of an engineer, is that if you do a good job, no one knows your name. But also within the construction industry, as an engineer, there's a lot of things that you can do. You could be a project manager, which is kind of taking care of people, taking care of projects, making sure that everything's getting done on time. You could be advisory, which is the type of people who tell the government how to spend their money. So like where to build or how many stories a building should be. There's also asset management. So there's so many existing buildings and roads and bridges, and how do you take care of them? Yeah, so I think that just gives a perspective of it's not just you sit down and you do maths. There's a lot of varieties of jobs. Yeah, and then I think what I'll talk about most is why I like engineering. So, I mean, I can tell you that I actually do enjoy my job. I don't know about the other presenters, you know this. But for me, what I would say is, like, I get to do cool work that I like, that has a real impact. So there's a new building in Waitakere Hospital that's being built, and I had the pleasure of designing it, which is very cool. I get to watch it be built every day. The new Auckland Hospital, there's a big building, it's known as the Central Plant, that I also designed. Britomart Station, bits and pieces of that I got to design. There's a handrail that if you pull on, hopefully it doesn't move, because I designed it. There's a big, the new plaza in Britomart just opened. There's a big little seat circle thing. That was actually the first ever project that I got to do by myself, and I take a lot of pride in that. And it's cool. It's cool to see this thing that you do on a paper become real, become tangible. It's not just like work that you do for other people that kind of goes off somewhere else. And you get to see it really impact people. You really get to see it help people, you know. I mean, we all need hospitals and schools. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I would say. I'd say if you want a job that, or a career that is fulfilling and that you get to have real impact on the world around you, yeah, I would suggest engineering. If you like maths, you like physics, and you want to use it for good, yeah, consider engineering. Do you have any questions? Or? Yes. The Twin Tower structural engineering. I actually have an interesting story about that. So the engineering lecturer at University of Auckland was the subject matter expert brought in after 9/11. So he has taught us about it. Yes, it did happen. That is, it's all true. Yes, Pawanko?
One question. Structural engineering in New Zealand, is it in any way different compared to North America or Europe?
Yes, very different. So there's two main reasons why structural engineering projects in New Zealand are very interesting. Number one, we don't have a lot of money. So it's all about being smart. It's all about being efficient with your designs. And number two, we have earthquakes. So every structure in New Zealand must be designed for an earthquake. And that is something that most countries don't have to do. So actually, New Zealand structural engineers are highly revered internationally for their ability to design for earthquakes. But I will say that a very interesting engineering problem in the industry is balancing budget with what you want to do. Anything else, or?
Excellent. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
আমাদের আজকের মতো এখানে শেষ করছি আজকের সব আলোচনা। বাচ্চাদেরকে অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ যে তোমরা কষ্ট করে আন্টিদের এই আয়োজনে আসছো। আশা করি তোমাদের কিছু না কিছু উপকার হবে ইনশাল্লাহ। আর যারা আসছেন সবাই এখনও পর্যন্ত আছেন লগ্ন, অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আর সবাই ওইটা মাথায় রাখবেন যে 20 তারিখে বাচ্চারাও সবাই আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানে আসবা ইনশাল্লাহ। আর আমাদের ফেসবুক পেজটা সবাই লাইক, আর এটা তোমরা কি বলো, সাবস্ক্রাইব করা, ওইটা করবা প্লিজ। হ্যাঁ
Sagar, if you give me 1 minute.
শিওর।
Okay,
কোথায় আপনি?
young ones, I said I was going to come back to you. Okay, how many of you want to be engineers? Raise your hands. Even the lawyers can raise their hands too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, how many entrepreneurs here? 1, 2, 2. Yes, creativity. Put your hands up. Your mother's not going to see it. Yeah. Okay, and lawyers? Okay, 2 new ones, 3, yeah, 4. Okay, and we have left pharmacists. Pharmacists, it was a great talk, yeah, 1, 2, there you go. Anyway, get home and think about all these areas. Remember there's one common link, which is what drives you, passion, what you'll be most interested about, because one common thread to every profession, perseverance. And how you're going to get that energy of perseverance? If you're interested about it. So pick the one that you like. Thank you.
Thank you, Babu Bhai. Thank you, everyone.